This table is for family. That's what my mother-in-law said, her hand resting firmly on the back of the chair I had just pulled out. The restaurant was elegant, white tablecloths, soft lighting, the kind of place where menus didn't have prices. My husband's entire family was already seated. His parents, his siblings, even distant cousins. Everyone smiled politely, except me. I froze, embarrassed, confused. Oh, I thought. You can sit over there, she said, nodding toward a small two-top near the wall. This table is just for family. My husband avoided my eyes. That hurt more than the words. I swallowed my pride and walked to the other table alone, pretending I didn't feel the stares from nearby guests. The waiter handed me a menu and asked if I was dining separately. Yes, I said quietly. Across the room, laughter erupted. Wine was poured. Orders were made without looking at prices. They toasted birthdays, promotions, memories I apparently wasn't part of. I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu and sipped water slowly, telling myself it was just one dinner. Just one moment. But then the waiter returned, not to their table. To mine. He placed a leather folder in front of me and whispered, "Ma'am, there seems to be some confusion, but this bill was assigned to you." I opened it. $2,200. My hands started shaking. "I think there's a mistake," I said. The waiter hesitated. "They told us you were covering dinner." I looked up. Every single person at the family table was watching me now, smiling. And that's when I realized this dinner wasn't an accident. It was a test. And they were about to learn something they never expected. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. $2,200. My rent. My savings. Gone in a single leather folder. I looked toward my husband. He finally met my eyes, then looked away. My mother-in-law leaned back in her chair, perfectly relaxed. "Oh dear," she said loudly enough for the waiter to hear. "Did no one explain? We assumed you'd want to treat the family. Isn't that what good wives do?" A few chuckles followed. Quiet. Polite. Cruel. "I wasn't asked," I said carefully. She smiled. "We didn't think we needed to." The waiter stood frozen between us, clearly uncomfortable. I closed the folder and set it on the table. "I need a moment," I said, standing. In the restroom, I stared at my reflection. I looked small. Tired. Someone who had spent too long trying to belong where she was never welcome. I could pay it. Barely. That's what they were counting on. When I returned, my husband whispered, "Let's not make a scene." Something hardened in my chest. I smiled at the waiter. "Could you please bring me a copy of the itemized bill?" My mother-in-law raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because," I said calmly, "I'd like to understand exactly what I'm being charged for." The waiter nodded and left. Across the table, the laughter faded. Forks paused midair. They thought I would cry. They thought I would comply. They didn't realize I'd spent years learning how to stay calm when I was being humiliated. And when the itemized bill came back, I noticed something that made my pulse slow. A detail they had overlooked. A mistake that would change everything. I studied the itemized bill slowly, as if I were simply checking numbers. But my heart was steady now. Several bottles of wine. Premium cuts of steak. A dessert sampler ordered twice. And then I saw it, the timestamps. Drinks placed before I even arrived. Appetizers ordered while I was still being told where I wasn't allowed to sit. I looked up at the waiter. "Just to confirm," I said gently, "all of this was ordered by that table?" He nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "And my order?" I asked. He scanned the page. "That's listed separately. One entree. No alcohol." I smiled. "Thank you." My mother-in-law cleared her throat. "Is there a problem?" I folded the bill carefully and stood. "Actually, yes. A small one." The table went quiet. "I was told this table was for family," I said, keeping my voice even. "I dined separately. I ordered separately. So I won't be covering expenses I didn't participate in." My husband shifted uncomfortably. "Can we not do this here?" I looked at him. "You already did." The waiter hesitated. "Ma'am," the host insisted. "Then the host can pay," I said. Calm. Clear. My mother-in-law's smile tightened. "You're embarrassing us." "No," I replied. "I'm declining a charge." I reached into my purse, pulled out my card, and placed it on the table. I'll pay for what I ordered. Nothing more. The waiter nodded slowly, relief flickering across his face. Around the table, murmurs started. Confusion. Discomfort. For the first time all night, they weren't in control of the situation. But my mother-in-law wasn't done. She leaned forward and said quietly, sharply, "If you do this, don't expect to be invited again." I met her eyes. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. Because I was about to realize something important. This wasn't a punishment. It was an escape. And the consequences of tonight were about to follow them, not me. The waiter returned with 2 receipts. One for my single entree. One thick folder for the family table. He placed them carefully, as if sensing the tension. My mother-in-law stared at the larger bill. Her smile faltered. "There's been a mistake," she said. The manager approached. Calm. Professional. "No, ma'am," he replied. "The charges have been reassigned correctly." Around the table, faces changed. Jokes stopped. Phones came out. Whispers replaced laughter. My husband stood. "I'll cover it." His mother shot him a sharp look. "You will not." I watched quietly. For the first time, I wasn't the problem to be managed. I paid my bill. I tipped the waiter generously. Then I stood. "Thank you for dinner," I said, not to them, but to myself. As I turned to leave, my mother-in-law spoke again, her voice low. "You've made this very clear where you stand." I paused. "I was told this table wasn't for me," I said calmly. "So I chose a different one." I walked out into the cool night air, my heart pounding, but lighter. Behind me, voices rose. Arguments. Accusations. Panic over who would cover what. Later that night, my husband called. "You humiliated my family," he said. I listened quietly. "No," I replied. "They humiliated themselves." There was a long silence. Then he asked the question he'd avoided all evening. "Why didn't you just pay?" I answered honestly. "Because respect isn't something you buy." And that was the moment I realized this wasn't just about a dinner bill. It was about the life I was no longer willing to accept. I didn't answer his calls that night. I went home, took off my shoes, and sat in silence, thinking about every moment I'd stayed quiet just to keep the peace. Every dinner. Every comment. Every time I'd been made to feel like I was asking for too much just by existing. The next morning, my husband came home early. He didn't apologize. Instead, he said, "You could have handled that better." That's when I knew. This wasn't about a bill, I said calmly. It was about respect. "And you watched them humiliate me." He sighed. "They're just like that." "I won't be," I replied. That conversation changed everything. I stopped attending dinners where I wasn't welcomed. I stopped paying for peace with my dignity. Slowly, quietly, I rebuilt boundaries I should have had all along. A few weeks later, I ran into the same waiter at the restaurant. He smiled and said, "That night, you handled it with more class than anyone at that table." I thanked him and meant it. Because that $2,200 bill was never meant to be paid with money. It was meant to be paid with silence. And I refused. Some tables are expensive because they cost you your self-respect. Walking away is free. And sometimes, that's the most powerful choice you can make.